What's going on, gamers? Got an interesting video here to make when it comes to Steam and PS5 ports. Not Sony pulling their games, but the hypothetically, like they said, topic of Sony potentially delisting the games that they put on there and not having any of them be able to play on the Xbox Helix. What an interesting topic this is going to be, huh? And would it be crazy if they did something like this? So this is what we're going to be talking about here. I want you guys to let me know what you think about this for sure. So Push Square says, hypothetically speaking, could Sony stop its PlayStation 5 ports from running on Xbox Helix? Yeah, it's pretty crazy, right? When you think about that. We got Xbox Helix trending over here too, which is interesting. PSSR2 is obviously taking off. Thank you for all that support, of course, too. But here's what I think. I mean, it's a possibility. They could do it. And it's something that people are thinking that Sony may do. So going down here to Foxy, he says they can delist PlayStation games from any storefront for sure. I'm going to give my analysis on it too. Existing users can still download purchased games and play them. But PlayStation games would not be available for new purchasers. That actually makes sense. I think that's pretty fair if they decide to do that. Because it's not like they're getting any more sales anyways. And many Project Helix users will be blocked from them. Since, here's my thing is too. And he says it's very possible where Sony do it. If Sony wanted anything on the Xbox storefront, those games would have been there. But they chose Steam. They didn't choose Xbox. So it is a topic that people are thinking about since Sony is now pulling its exclusives from Steam, and they're not getting any more tentpole titles like the single-player games. It's definitely interesting. Like thinking when you think about the hardware ID or maybe the Mac or whatever, Sony could potentially block that off because it's going to have backwards compatibility Xbox layers in there, as we saw what was going on at GDC. So I think it's possible that Sony may do that, but I'm not going to say that they're going to, but you never know. They just might. I think so. If they just don't want any of that going on there and they realize Steam's not helping anyway, so like they wanted, obviously that's why they're stopping. So they may just go ahead and pull the plug. We're going to get to this article here in a second. And I believe they just want things to be specifically only in the PlayStation ecosystem. So when it comes to that, that may be the case. And said, hey, we gave you 6 years to try, 5.5 or whatever. And we're not giving Xbox anything. You know what I mean? Though I look at it as a PC now, kind of like the same position as the Steam machine. So if Sony does not want stuff from the Steam base, they definitely don't want any extension of that coming from their old competitor. And their old competitor needs them to survive as a publisher. So that's not going to hurt them regardless anyway. So they would probably be in the position to do something like that. I want you guys to let me know if you think Sony's going to do this. Let's read some more down here. We got Simon says, I would have thought so, right? What the hell is this doing on my damn monitor? Says, I would have thought so. Xbox Helix is a glorified PC running a Windows operating system. Would be a legal minefield, I'd imagine. I'm sure the user agreement on Windows requires software to be hardware agnostic, so legally, I want to say no. Hypothetically, there must be some way. Surely it's no different to a hardware ban. That said, would they really bother? I can't imagine so. This is what I mean. I don't think it's a threat. Like, the only way I can see that happen is Sony's just saying, look, my games are not selling anymore on Steam. I'm just going to delist everything on Steam now. For those of you that have the PlayStation games, enjoy them. Would that be a bad rep for them? How could that really hurt Sony? Because Steam didn't support them anyway. They could just say, look, we're just going all PlayStation only. We let you borrow our games for almost 6 years. We've seen that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to delist everything there. This has happened before. We've seen delisting happen when you don't get the results that you want anymore. You delist it. And that's only in the PlayStation ecosystem. And now everything is only PlayStation. But for the people who got it, you got it in there. You got that copy. People take down stuff all the time. We've seen Nintendo do it with stuff when it comes to the Mario collection or whatever, right? And that was limited, and then they delisted it. And that's their own stuff, even on their own store. So it's like they're not a criminal if they do that. They're not. No, it's like we can do whatever we want with our products. We shared it with you for this long. We can delist it if we want. I think that that's something that may be a part of the other aspect of saying we're not giving you no more of our exclusives now. Possible. I don't know. I'm not saying that they would do that. It says when sold to a Steam user, that agreement is between Sony and the Steam user, not the device. The user is signing into and would open a can of worms for Sony to block legitimate customers as if it could be them signing into a Steam box in a friend's house in Japan. No difference. I get what he's trying to say. Now, going over to Push Square, we can come back to this to a second. It says, we know Xbox Helix, the next generation system from Microsoft, will run PC games. This represents a dramatic change from the tried and trusted console business model, and it remains to be seen how the Redmond firm will square the circle. Platform holders like PlayStation and Nintendo have historically sold their hardware at a loss or break even in order to get people into the ecosystem. Well, Nintendo is the only one that actually made a profit historically for a long time. PlayStation, not so much, not till later. Once they successfully got enough units into players' homes, they make the bulk of their money through microtransactions, subscriptions, accessories, and software. Nintendo, not so much with microtransactions. It's unclear how Xbox will keep players within its own ecosystem if it allows them to install rival storefronts like Steam, and that's going to have a profound impact on its overall outcome or income. And that's very true. Rumors suggest that the box could cost up to $1,200, maybe more, you never know. It also raises a problem for PlayStation, who up until recently was in the business of selling PC ports. This story has changed somewhat over the past few days. As it's reported, Sony has pulled the plug on conversions of its single-player games like Ghost of Yotei and Saros. Astrobot never came. Demon Souls never came. GT never came. Bloodborne's not coming. You know what I mean? It's like, there's a lot of games that you still never got. Like, and there's some games that Xbox never came to PC because of certain situations. You know what I mean? You're not getting Forza 4 and certain other things or whatever it was that just have problems or license issues. Everything is not going to be able to come. But I'm pretty sure Microsoft will probably make that transition now. But I'm saying sometimes that happens. You're not going to get everything. You heard people saying that. Like, I go look at articles like this. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't get every PlayStation game. But you did get a lot, though. So, but it doesn't change the fact that should everything go as rumored, you'll be able to play tentpole first-party titles like Marvel Spider-Man 2 and God of War Ragnarok on Xbox Helix. Here's my thing, though. You could do it on the ROG Ally and Ally X. Sony didn't block it. But that's a ROG, though. It's not an Xbox official. So that gives me the idea that I don't think they care, but who knows with the way they're changing their plans now, it's a possibility. So I'm not the one to sit there saying, haha, they blocked it, you can't play PlayStation games. Hey man, I'm not immature like that. I got my experience. I don't care if a gamer's going to get another gamer experience. I'm not going to sit here and hate on it. So is this something Sony could block in the future? Based on the research we've done, it's unclear about the feasibility of this. There doesn't appear to be a precedent for publishers picking and choosing which platforms the Steam software can run on. And we suspect something like this runs contrary to Valve's terms and conditions. But Sony's the publisher, they still control everything. Valve is just an open platform for them to try to test something on. What we will say is that PlayStation didn't do anything to prevent its games from running on the ROG or the Xbox ROG Ally X, the PC handheld, which launched last year. Yeah, but that's not an official Xbox device, but that's what I was just saying. While this did generate some headlines at the time. Look, Mom, I'm playing Spider-Man 2 on an Xbox. It hasn't really had any kind of negative impact on the PlayStation 5 or PlayStation business. No, because that thing didn't even sell 1 million copies. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not a threat. Our guess is that any PC games that already exist or are released in the future will run on the Xbox Helix. If it's a PC, it's the same thing. It comes down to this. Will Sony delist their games on Steam? Albeit through Steam. It's important to underline that Microsoft will not see a cent from any of this. And so it brings us back to the business model issue we outlined above. My point exactly. You're going to be going to Steam, and Steam will still be part of the contract with Sony, but through the Xbox hardware or hybrid that appears like a console, but it's a PC. It's possible that has, backwards compatibility console futures. It's possible that Sony's decision to back away from the single-player PC ports has partly hinged on Microsoft's strategy, although it's likely a footnote compared to the lack of revenue being generated by these games. Here's my thing, guys. It's like he was saying right here. They can delist PlayStation games from any storefront for sure. Existing users can still download purchased games and play them. But PlayStation games will not be available for new purchasers, and many Project Helix users will be blocked by them or from them. That's kind of like my thing, what I have to say about that. But here's my thing also with this. You had a thread thinking that Sony, like Mikey Barr said, is being threatened by the Steam machine. Whereas like the Xbox Series had a bigger base than that. The problem here is not even the Helix. because that's not going to be a threat. It ain't going to even sell 10 million probably. You see what I'm saying? It's going to be limited. I'm telling you. So it comes down to, will Sony want to delist their games on Steam? If they do that, then it doesn't matter about the Helix, because the Helix is not going to be able to get it. It's about what are they going to do between a contract between them and Steam. That's what you need to be worried about. But it will be fascinating to see if any of these changes, or any of this changes the calculus on console exclusives. Sony has in the past paid publishers to delay the Xbox versions of their games. Silent Hill 2, for example, was exclusive to PS5 and PC for a year. There are other examples. Is there much point in continuing to do this when Microsoft can just point its players to Steam? They're not making any money off of it. It's no longer a console to compete with PlayStation as a rival and competitor to make them worry. It doesn't matter. It's all about what are they going to do with Steam. Again, it won't see a cent from this strategy, but by the same margin, it doesn't seem like Sony will get much out of it either. It's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out and what kind of impact it has on PlayStation moving forward. The lines between PC and console have never been more blurred than they are right now. That's just people that may be confused because they want to explain things too straightforward. The Xbox Helix is going to be a PC with console backwards compatibility feats. Plain and simple. It's not a console. It's going to be so way beyond what you think a console is. I imagine its potential is illegal for them to do so, as in Valve, Microsoft, or gamers could sue them, as they have no legal precedent to defend themselves. That just depends. I'm sure they can cook up a lawsuit about not allowing Helix to play their games regardless if they bought them via Steam. And look, this is the thing. You're only going to do that if it's a threat. Why would Sony be threatened? Do you think they're threatened by the Series X right now? And the S? No. It's no threat. They're not threatened by the Steam machine. They're not threatened by anything. If Steam was a threat to Sony, they would have never put their games on there if there was a threat. No, it was looking to be a supplementary component, meaning you're going to be my little side partner that helped me out to make more money as being a publisher. And I can expand the PlayStation business. Sony even had a thread talking about they're doing that to bring people into the PlayStation world. It wasn't about making Steam better. It's about PlayStation publishing and expanding PlayStation intellectual properties. There's nothing else than that. And then they're like, you're not having PlayStation out that much. All right, I'm pulling from you. Now, as far as going outside of that and delisting, yeah, that's a whole different topic. Like whether they're gonna do that on top of not sharing any more games. That all depends. But it's an interesting question. I can't solidify that. You know what I mean? But is it a possibility from Sony? Yeah, they're liable to do something like that, right? So we've seen some comments down here. Sony, they're playing with my toys and I don't like it. Doesn't matter. Xbox isn't really a competitor anymore. That's the way I would think. They're not a competitor. Is it worth it? Sounds like taking spare change back from a beggar. That's absolutely hilarious. Hey, that's the thing. Like, I kind of feel like that's what it is. It's like, what are they going to do, though? They're not going to even sell 10 million Helixes. It's going to be very limited, like the Steam Deck. So why do it anyways? I don't think it really matters. The big thing here is that they're pulling their future exclusives from Steam. I want you guys to let me know what you think about this. Leave a comment down below. Do you think Sony's going to do that? Or do you think it doesn't matter like I think? You know, it is definitely something to talk about. I actually seen Porter Rock actually making that one of his headlines for his live going up soon or whatever. Good luck to that. And I've seen other people talk about it. I've read some threads about it. And, you know, I think sometimes people just like that topic. When you have something new coming around the corner, you still have that memory of thinking of PlayStation versus Xbox. You know what I mean? It's something that lives in your memory. It's something that happened for, hell, 20 years now. So it's not something lightly to just let go. You still kind of hope that there was some type of flare up in that, though it's less competitive than ever. But hey, it's a publishing war now. That's what it's about. These businesses and these new guys are seeing how much money can we make is possible. You know what I mean? They're not too stuck on that compared to back then. And PlayStation does not need to play that game because they realize how much that side benefit was not really all that compared to their brand identity. They can just strengthen that and take that percentage and still make it up, no problem. And strengthen the PS6 identity because it's not going to be available anywhere else. I think Sony's making the right move, whereas Microsoft does not have a choice. That's the difference here. You see? So let me know what you guys think. Once again, keep gaming no matter what platform you're on. You guys know what I say. I don't care what console you're gaming on. If you're gaming to me. I ain't hating on nobody even getting a Helix or any of that. So what? If that's what makes you happy, that's the only thing that matters. Later, y'all.